It's 5:30, so we'll call to order this meeting for Monday, September 23rd. Jordan, would you start us off with the roll call?
Please respond by stating present. Councilmember Ronayne. Faubourg.
Present.
Liebelt.
Present.
Ward.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Reinbold.
Present.
Langer. Norvstrup.
Present.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Present. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business will be to approve this week's agenda. Not aware of any changes, so I would take a motion to approve as printed.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Reinbold and a second from Councilwoman Liebelt. Anyone have anything on the agenda? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we've got our approval of the minutes from last week's meeting, which took place on September 16th. I would take a motion to approve those minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion from Councilwoman Liebelt and a second from Councilman Ward. Does anyone from the council have any adjustments to make on any of these? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have one speaker signed up for our open forum, who is Julie Johnson. Julie, welcome to the meeting. Julie is here to talk a little bit about the impacts of IM28. Julie, make sure the little green light is on, and the floor is yours.
Mayor, members of the council, audience members, my name is Julie Johnson. I happen to be a volunteer with the Campaign Against Initiated Measure 28. It turns out that I've wandered the universe in terms of the tax policy in South Dakota for a very long time. And I was Secretary of Revenue once upon a time when we did a major renovation to the tax code as well. So I'm simply here to encourage your passage of your resolution this evening and to offer any institutional memory or any knowledge you might need on this topic. I am fearful of what happens to all of us if Initiated Measure 28 passes, and I think I know a little too much about how the process will or won't work if it passes. So I'll be happy to make myself available to you now or into the future. Thank you very much.
Julie, I'm curious about your impression of the terminology associated with consumable goods. I'd asked Mike last week because he had come by and expressed similar sentiment on the topic, and he wasn't very familiar with what that might look like. But what does consumable goods mean?
Human consumption.
Human consumption
Is the phrase. And for those that think groceries are in the initiated measure, they are wrong. It says human consumption. Okay, so I know the tax code a little too well. Human consumption is not in Title 10 of the South Dakota Code. So it is not defined as anything that is taxed in the sales tax or hardly any other taxes as well. I don't believe that's what the writers of it actually had in mind, but they chose words that are not going to work for us very well into the future. The Legislative Research Council has done some authoritative research about what they think it might mean and how they might seek definitions from other areas. If you need that link to those resources, I'll be happy to provide it. But they went through it in great detail about how human consumption is not defined in the tax code, and we'd spend a whole long time figuring out exactly what that meant. And you'd have to look to other sources, like they even have a chart in their document that looks at how Dollar Tree considers human consumption, and it includes paper towels and baby wipes and a whole bunch of other things that I don't think the writers of the measure had in mind when they wrote this, or any of the people that originally supported it.
So from your opinion, do you think that the sales tax impact would be greater than, if it, like when implemented, would be greater than the impact of rescission of sales tax on grocery items only?
Absolutely. The Legislative Research Council, I believe their number is $646 million, which is about 45% of the state's general fund. That's a lot of money. That's money to schools and everybody else. in the process, so it's far greater than if it were just groceries. If we actually, see, defining groceries anymore is complicated as well. 2 years ago, there was a bill in from the governor that didn't last very long, that has slightly better definition. But even defining groceries right now in the complexity of taxing internet sales and combining our laws with other states in that regard for internet sales, it just makes it more complicated than normal.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate your input on the measure. And as you had made mention of, we do have a reading on a resolution to stamp our concern on the matter. So appreciate you joining us. And if anyone has questions for Julie, they can reach out to her afterwards then as well.
Thank you.
Moving right along, we've got a consent calendar with just 3 items here today. We will accept the reports from several boards. We will take a consideration of a new building contractor's license as well as a new taxi cab driver license. I would take a motion to approve our consent calendar items.
So moved.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Norvstrup. Does anyone have any questions or comments on any of these items? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next on our docket here tonight will be new business where we have our audit presentation. Jordan, would you care to set the stage?
Thank you, Mayor. As required by South Dakota Codified Law and our charter, we undergo an annual audit. Our audit is performed by Eide Bailey of Aberdeen. It's a very comprehensive process that takes a long time to complete. There were several new accounting standards that we implemented within the last year, so it added to the complexity of our financials. I'm sure he'll speak briefly on audit accounting policies related to leases and software-based IT arrangements, to name 2 of them in particular. We have some technical difficulties today, so that's why you see the display in front of you this evening. I've printed out copies of his presentation in front of you. The display is for the audience, but Cameron Zent, a partner at Eide Bailey, will be presenting the findings from our audit. The audit is available on our website in the finance page. We have hard copies available in the finance office, or reach out to me and I'll email you in as well.
Thank you, Jordan, and welcome, Cameron. Appreciate you joining us here this evening to walk us through this audit and its findings.
Press the button. Yep.
There we go. Well, thank you very much, Mayor. Pleasure to be here tonight. As Jordan mentioned, we'll go through the slide deck here. Sounds like all of you have a copy of it. Just want to say first and foremost, thanks to the whole team at the City of Aberdeen. As Jordan mentioned, it is an extensive process. It does take a lot of time. There was a lot of things to dig into. We have 2 components of the audit every year, the financial statement audit and then the single audit, or the federal awards audit. And so we'll go through both parts this year, similar to prior years, and we'll get right into it. Audit findings wise, the good news, clean opinions on the financial statements. So the financial statements in accordance with GAAP, materially fairly presented. The single audit side, an unmodified clean opinion on the operations of the major program, which again this year was Airport Improvement Program. So clean opinions top to bottom on the financial statements. From a finding perspective, financial statement side of things, auditor assistance in preparation of the financial statements and schedule of expenditures of federal awards. And then, so that's the same finding as last year. The preparation of the financial statements is, we're asked to help put together the footnotes, statement of cash flows, various things like that, and pulling all of the financials together and the required footnotes. The schedule of expenditures of federal awards is the long list of spent federal money by federal program. There are times where we make adjustments to amounts in there, and those typically relate to audit adjustments that we propose and identify during our audit procedures. Number 2 is audit adjustments, past adjustments, and restatement. Audit adjustments and past adjustments, we've had those in prior years as well. The addition to here is restatement. In the current year, we identified two items that were significant enough to necessitate restating prior year balances. This was in the water and sewer fund, water fund relating to a receivable relating to kind of a stagnant old FEMA grant that was finally received, and should be revenue in the water fund. That was missed, and we picked that up and restated beginning balances. Number 2 was sewer fund relating to special sales tax paid improvements, which are capital contributions over in the sewer fund, which is a proprietary fund. So 2 items that we found there, both of them large enough where they required us to go back and fix prior year amounts, which would be current year beginning amounts. The uniform guidance or single audit side, no findings. Clean testing and report on the airport improvement program. Cash and investments overall, governmental versus business type. Total cash and investments, about $45.6 million of cash and investments on hand this year. Pretty similar to last year, just down a touch from last year's $46.7 million. Year over year, a 2.5% decrease in cash balances, cash and investment balances held by the city. General fund, your main operating fund of the city. This slide here is a detail of the revenues that make up general fund operations. You can see most of it is taxes. Just short of $22 million in taxes this year. Last year, about 21.4. Overall, just shy of $30 million in revenues in the general fund. It's about 1.8 million more than a year ago. On a percentage basis, 6.4% increase from 2022. The expenditures side of the general fund operations, just shy of $25 million in total expenditures within the general fund this year. Similar to the revenue side, up a tad over last year, about $1.5 million. And that's also 6.6% year over year increase in total expenditures. Half of those or so, a little more than half, public safety related, with Public Works coming in at number 2. Fund balance, this is the equity within the general fund. Equity at the end of the day, pretty much overall unchanged from last year, just over $16 million of total equity. A little over 10 million of that is unassigned. So this is free, unencumbered. It's not pinned to anything. That is about $1 million increase in unassigned equity from 22 to 23. Special Sales Tax Fund is the other larger governmental fund of the city. The revenue side of the Special Sales Tax Fund is quite simple. It's taxes based. Year over year compared to 2022, just a slight increase, about $100,000 increase in total overall revenue within Special Sales Tax Fund. The expenditure side of the equation, about $9.2 million of expenditures, Special Sales Tax Fund this year. $625,000 increase from last year, or roughly 7.3%. Most of the special sales tax expenditures are various public works projects. Fund balances within special sales tax have been slowly declining over the last several years. For 2022, they ended up just over $4.5 million of fund balance. The part of the reason from the year-over-year increase or year-over-year decrease in the fund balance, there was about just over $4 million of transfers out of cash out of the special sales tax fund to various other funds. So if you looked at the prior two slides, there was a net income there. Once you factor the transfers out, that gets us to our year-over-year decrease of roughly $1.4 million in fund balance within the special sales tax fund. A couple slides on proprietary fund operations, water and sewer being the big two. Moving from left to right here just shows you kind of the trend of revenues, expenses, and operating income. You can see kind of revenues kind of fluttering, pretty consistent. General trend increase here of increase of the expense side of the equation, a slight uptick in expenses. You know, the operating income holding fairly steady. Little less in water fund this year in 2023 compared to last year. Sewer fund is quite similar. The revenues up a little bit over 2022. Expenses behaving pretty similar to water fund expenses, up as well. And then operating income kind of hovering around that near $1 million operating income mark. In terms of slides, that's all I have tonight to present. I'd be willing to entertain any questions from anyone on the council.
Cameron, I'm curious about your feelings on the overall process of the audit and the interworkings of our department. It sounds as though it went a little bit maybe smoother this year than previous years. Would that be a fair assessment?
I would say year over year, yes. A little bit of improvement. There's still things that could be done that would, just help from in terms of efficiency. But yeah, year over year, yes. I mean, it is a challenge. It is a task to bring everything together, take 12 months of activity, and get all the accruals booked. I mean, you got a lot of departments, you got a lot of individuals that need to come to the table to bring it all together and communicate and work together. So yeah, year over year, I would say yes, there was improvement. There's still ways to go though.
Okay. Thank you. And the one bit of information that I could maybe just get from Jordan, but on the general fund revenues, $1.5 million was a pretty big increase over the previous year, titled as miscellaneous. What does that consist of?
Miscellaneous revenue includes things like interest. That's the largest portion.
So interest rates are really the driver in
Yes.
that major increase this year. Okay,
Yep.
that was my question. Anyone else from the council have any questions for Cameron and his involvement in this process or the findings?
You just stole my question
Oh, about it going smoother?
about the general fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
On
But
the
now
same
I've got to come up with another one.
wavelength here tonight. So the FEMA and the special sales tax statement issues that needed to be fixed from previous years, that was just something that hadn't been entered.
Yeah, so the FEMA situation, we actually had that recorded just within the general fund, the receivable. There's a differentiation between the accounting for governmental funds and proprietary funds. When we corrected to get that within the water fund, which was the fund that originally paid for the expenditures years ago, the water fund is on a full accrual basis. So when you book a receivable in the water fund, as long as it's earned, it's booked as revenue, which is a different basis than how it's recorded in the governmental funds. The governmental funds, it's not recorded as revenue. It's actually a deferred inflow of resources if it's not received within a certain amount of time after year end. So the general fund really was not impacted, at least equity was not impacted, but if we had it correct to begin with in the water fund would have had extra net position and revenue in a prior year. The FEMA gets tough because FEMA is typically slow to approve certain things, and so you have delays. So you have instances where expenditures are incurred, and you wait for them to approve them, approve project worksheets, and then ultimately release funds. So you have this big timing. This actually could have been 24 plus months in the making. So yeah, the receivable was recorded. It was just in the wrong fund, and differences between how that's accounted for that created the need to fix the equity, the beginning equity. And then the sewer fund was every year the special sales tax pays for improvements, and those fixed assets, some of them are allocated to be recorded underneath the sewer fund. There is no fixed assets recorded in special sales tax because it's a governmental fund. The sewer fund, there is fixed or capital assets recorded. So that bit got missed last year. So we had to pick it up. It was, I think, part of a project that was in progress or in process. So we identified it this year while we were working through the current year information. The whole total needs to get on, part of it related to prior year. So we went and fixed that.
Thank you for that clarification, Cameron. That makes sense to me. Jordan, anything from your end of things in terms of the process itself? How do you feel?
I think it felt a lot better. I've been doing these with the city since 2013. The last few years have been interesting with the city, lots of change in key positions, but we're stable. We have a good handle on things, and I think things will continue to get better.
Thank you very much. Any final thoughts to share with?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Hi, Cameron. Under expenditures, there's the expenditures general fund, then there's expenditures special sales tax fund, and then there's total fund balances. And I'm just trying to track, if I were a citizen, like where are we spending our money? If you look at expenditures general fund, you can see a few things increasing, like culture and recreation. And then it sounded like what I understood you to say is that the total fund balances, that's decreasing because we're taking some special sales tax funds and potentially supporting certain parts of our budget out of those. I don't know if I understood you correctly there. And then if I could better understand why the special sales tax fund expenditures chart is changing the way it is since 2021, I'd appreciate that too.
Yeah, so multiple questions there, which
Yeah. You can take
not
them
having
any
the-
order you want.
yeah, not having the financials in front of me. The governmental accounting, we have to, each fund is its own separate financial statement, basically.
Okay.
So general fund has its silo of operations, special sales tax has its silo of operations. Specifically to the special sales tax fund, the special sales tax fund shows a positive, basically I'll just call it a net income, excluding transfers. So special sales tax fund had more revenue come in than its expenses, but it also transferred out a little over $4 million to other funds. Transfers out are not expenditures, but it's similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's resources leaving the fund going to a different fund. So that's the biggest reason why special sales tax fund balance has been decreasing, is every year there's several $1 million of interfund transfers going to, could be water, could be any fund, could be promotion fund to supplement operations.
Mm-hmm.
General fund wise, not having the financials in front of me, fund balance, general fund also is a fund that will transfer out money. It's kind of its name, general fund, is used for a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, there are certain expenditure lines in there that can kind of bounce from year to year depending on projects. Culture and rec, depending on certain kind of, there's some big ticket items. It's kind of hard to tell like I said, without having it in front of me. But you know, the important thing to me would be is looking at the budget to actual within that, which is
Okay.
towards the back of the financials. That'll show you the original budget that the city started with, and then the revised. Well, you have your original budget, and you have your final with budget supplements,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can see really where we started and where we ended up,
Okay.
and you know how much more we spent than what we kind of thought to start the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you can see if were we high or low actual to where we were approved to spend. And in every case, you should be below what you were authorized to. But that would be the important one to look at, because that shows you kind of how close we were to start. Inevitably, there's things that come up, but which is what you supplement for. But does that kind of
Yeah, it does. Can I ask a follow-up?
yeah?
Yes, please.
That total fund balance, special sales tax fund, that it's decreasing over the last 4 years, and obviously it's only 4 years, so maybe if we went back 30, it'd look different. Is that a number that normally fluctuates? Is there any reason to consider anything? Does that tell us anything, basically?
No, not necessarily. I mean, the special sales tax fund is bringing a bunch of tax revenue, and then what do we use it for?
Okay, so we're
So-
just transferring it.
Yeah, you're just transferring it to whatever fund needs more to do whatever they want, whatever it wants to do. So really you just have $4.5 million of extra to use, is really what it is. It's just net assets.
And on that note, so the intergovernmental revenue is that primarily state funds?
Yeah.
Federal and state.
And that's coming for those earmarked departments that are funded by those. That's why there's an intergovernmental revenue spoken to special sales tax versus general fund.
That's correct. And the intergovernmental revenue within special sales tax is primarily public works based projects, street projects, bridge projects, things like that.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions?
Can I ask one more question?
Oh, please.
It's actually just an auditing question in general, and maybe Ron can ask it for me. But the expectation of the city is that when nonprofits ask for funds for promotional funds, that if they ask for over 99,000, right, that we ask for an annual audit. And our council's been talking about that a little bit, about whether that's an undue burden on some of these nonprofits to ask for an annual audit. Is there, since you're our auditor, a recommendation you would make as to something that might be a little bit lower threshold than that? That would be a more reasonable question, or a cycle for that audit that would be more reasonable than annually?
It's a valid question. The only definite answer I can give you is South Dakota codified law doesn't require an audit to be done. All it says is if the city gives funds for the purposes of promoting the city, South Dakota codified law says that entity shall provide a certified audit of those records to the municipality, but in lieu of a certified audit, the board may accept a financial statement. It doesn't define what a financial statement is. It doesn't say audited, reviewed, compiled. It could be a financial statement out of QuickBooks.
So Cameron, I think that the message that is really coming out of this is that we need to ensure that these public funds aren't being mismanaged
Yep.
on the recipient's end of the equation to be responsible to the taxpayers. Is there something maybe that's a scaled down? It's not a thorough financial audit that would essentially breeze through their books for a lower cost with less time involvement, that would essentially capture financial mismanagement or graft or theft or any of that sort of thing?
Probably. So let me just quick explain the three different forms of assurance work. You have audits, which is what we do for the city. The next lower degree would be a reviewed financial statement. which a reviewed financial statement is limited assurance. It's not reasonable assurance like an audit is. The extent of testing is considerably less in a reviewed financial statement. It revolves around inquiries and analytics. There's no detail testing like in an audit. So you're not looking at invoices. You're not getting stacks of paper. The next lower level below a review would be a compiled financial statement, which literally at its core is it's no assurance at all. And it's really at its core just taking management amounts and compiling them into a presentable financial statement for a user. And all the three are not forensic audits. They're the audit is a financial statement audit. It's looking for material misstatements. So if your main objective is there fraud going on, that's not the main objective of a financial audit. It's not a forensic audit. A review would be even less likely to identify something if there was a reviewed financial statement. You would ask your client, are you aware of any fraud? But you're not digging for that. It's not a forensic audit. It's not a forensic review. So, if your objective is there anything, questionable going on, fraud, something like that, I don't know if you're going to get what you want from any of those, quite possibly. Yeah. So then it kind of comes down to, okay, well, obviously you need something, right? Because you're using public funds. There's, it just comes down to what's the consideration of cost benefit, really. You want the entities to use the funds to promote the city, not necessarily be burdened by audits aren't cheap. Mm-hmm. Reviews are less expensive, but it's still a cost. And compiled financial statements are a cost too, now a lot less. But I will say for clients that we do compiled financials for, there's a certain amount of adjustments that we do to, quote, clean things up a bit. You're not auditing, you're not doing any nitty gritty work, but at the same time, you want to issue something that is of good quality, in line with what you're required to do.
Thank you for that clarification. Really appreciate it. Cameron, anyone else from the council have anything for Cameron? Well, I think you did a fantastic job presenting here tonight, Cameron. Appreciate that. And glad to hear that things are slowly getting better from this interface on our end, and those will continue to do so as we move forward, and we'll see you again in a year, if not before.
Yep, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Cameron.
Next, we've got our CVB marketing update. I see Casey patiently waiting in the back. Casey, we also have a packet from you. Are these automatically stapled, or what? Does the machine staple these on the wrong side?
I'm sorry, I'm not good with copiers.
Oh, that was you.
Yeah. It's my first time.
Well, not all of us are left-handed here, Jordan. Are you left-handed?
Good evening, Mayor, Chairman, and members of the City Council. I appreciate you allowing us some time to come in and give you a marketing update on our vacation marketing for 2024. I'll try to be brief and respectful of your time. You do have handouts in front of you, which I did load the information to our website. I did email that out for review prior to the meeting, so we offer that as a resource to the City Council members. And if they have any questions, by all means, reach out or send us an email and follow up. We'd be sure to try to answer them. So, starting, I guess that case there. Sorry. Starting, we're just going over our 2024 vacation marketing for our Adventure Aberdeen. Give you a little bit of introduction to our team. Myself, the executive director, Cindy Topol, our financial gal in the office, Catherine Grandstand Quayle. She does our event sales and traditional marketing. Leighton Holmstrom does our event sales and social media marketing. And then Amy Lane Carmen is our administrative assistant that we have helping us out day by day. That's our team comprised of. Our mission, some of this is more for Rich's review or introduction. I know a lot of you know who we are, but just wanted to bring him up to speed as well. Our mission to enhance the well-being of the Aberdeen region, our vision, robust and engagement community that welcomes visitors, gives a positive experience, and benefits the regional economic growth. The function, to increase the amount of visitor activity in the Aberdeen with the emphasis on an overnight stay. The Aberdeen Area CVB is the only organization fully dedicated to increasing the B promotional tax. What we'll talk about in tonight's presentation are vacation marketing, our traditional marketing, social media marketing, website, Google Analytics, some YouTube video marketing, and then also the occupancy, SIC code, taxable spending. We'll talk about our Aberdeen events database, the Hotel Alliance funding, and what do the visitors think of visiting Aberdeen and coming to Aberdeen. First, the visitor traffic. We target the visitors outside of a 100-mile radius of Aberdeen and try to push that marketing as far as we can make that dollar go. We entice visitors to attend events with the focus on an overnight stay. Demographics that we're looking for: families looking for an affordable family vacation destination, and sporting events looking for a meeting place and tournament play in the community. Some of our traditional media that we do host, we have some print. We had 27 campaigns, and this is all January through June. We had 27 campaigns totaling almost 5,843,000 impressions. We have 2 billboard campaigns garnering just under 1 million impressions. We had 1 podcast we tried this year, had positive results with that. And that was only for 1 month. We had 1 campaign that garnered 222,000 impressions. Digital campaigns, 7 of them, 4,683,000 impressions. Email campaigns, there were 12 of them. 290,000 impressions with a 25% open rate and a 1.2 click rate, which is industry standard, is good. Actually, it's extremely good. Radio, we had 8 campaigns with 1.8 million impressions. And then video, 3 campaigns with 4.945 million impressions. So the total, we had 79 campaigns for June through July, totaling 18,495,000 impressions. And that's just halfway through our marketing season. So we're pretty proud of that. Vacation social media. We compared Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is still the platform that everybody engages and connects with to find that extra information. For 2024, we had 955,690 reach engagement, versus in 23 of 900,054. I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers on your chart, but I do have the numbers here. Instagram for 2024 was 38,219 versus 2023 of 40,502. And again, that's reach engagement that we utilize our social media platforms to drive that visitor experience even further. Some people flat out love social media engagement and media, and some prefer a little bit more traditional media. Website analytics, again, January through June, comparing 24 to 23. We had 64,000 users, up 4%. Of those 64,000, 63,000 were new users, up 5%. Those users hit an average of 3.89 pages per user, which is up 75%. The top 5 pages for engagement were our homepage, which we promote the website in general. Aberdeen area events, event calendar of events, play, family fun weekend. And why family fun weekend hit in the top 5 is the Aberdeen CVB was offered a grant through state tourism, and we utilize that to help promote Family Fun Weekend only. We thought it was a great way to kick off the vacation season by hitting it hard with Family Fun Weekend in cooperation with Parks and Rec. And then rounding out was Plan Your Trip or Request a Visitor Guide. And then notables, rounding out 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 were Eat, Storybook Land, Stay in a Hotel, our cabin vacation, our CVB bundle, cabin vacation bundle giveaway.
It's a tongue twister. And then our hotel of the month. So you can see people are hitting those primary resources when they're really trying to capture that information to plan that summer vacation getaway. YouTube, again, this refers you back to our website that we use to host the information. Most notably being our 2024 state softball welcome and greeting for the fans and athletes. Family Fun Weekend, which I mentioned, Storybook Land Festival, and then July 4th festivities were kind of the top 4 of engagement for our YouTube channel. Occupancy fee. The occupancy fee is a $2 fee that's added to hotel rooms when anybody rents a hotel room in Aberdeen. And thinking of visitors that actually come to Aberdeen, this is our best way to gauge visitor traffic outside of Aberdeen. You know, would Rich rent a hotel room for his son's 12th birthday party? Chances are he might. But first of all, this is going to be our best engagement of who a true visitor is by tracking that $2 occupancy fee as they come into Aberdeen. That money is collected by the hotels, submitted to the city. The city takes that money and returns it back to the Hotel Alliance. And that is money that they use to help fund events, sporting events, conventions, meetings, just special events that are held in the community that do not request promotional fund dollars. So it's a good resource to help the longevity of those events continue. Room occupancy usually carries a 1 to 3.5 people per when attending events. So you might have moms and dads, siblings, grandparents. And then notably that money, when it does come into the area, does multiply anywhere from 3 to 7 times as it comes into the community. So as that money comes in, the hotel collects it, that pays the housekeeper, that buys groceries, that feeds their family. And so you can see the trickle-down effect, how that dollar rotates 3 to 7 times as it comes into the community. So again, the occupancy is a $2 fee added to hotel rooms as they are rented in Aberdeen, and then we gauge that as our true indicator on who visitors are that come to the Aberdeen area. Taxable receipts and SIC codes. Taxable receipts is a standard industrial classification, SIC, system for classifying industries. A four-digit code that is attached to industry classifications on statistical purposes. We track eating, drinking, and lodging. Eating being 5812, drinking 5813, and lodging being 7011. Again, this is your promotional fund or your triple B, so we monitor that. In 2024, the SIC codes for taxable spending on vacation travel in Aberdeen was $50,314,900. So that's, again, January through June. And these are receipts that are reported on behalf of the city of Aberdeen to the state of South Dakota. So this is your all information. We just track it. And again, that kind of gives us a good understanding of the money that's being spent in the community. Any questions on those?
Do you have a sense of, or could you share
Yep,
where
I'll probably
we
be
stand?
hitting that here shortly.
Okay.
Well, you're talking about up or downs and
Yeah. I was
Yep.
curious about the actual, because you said 50 million there. I was wondering how that stood in the past and the occupancy.
Yep, I
fee.
have that here in front of me. It's probably not in your slideshow, but I do have the information. So right now, the occupancy tax, we are running at collected so far through June of $142,610 versus $312,673 for the year. So we are 4.39% behind currently through the month of June. I know July was really strong, so we were happy to see when Jordan gave us those numbers for July, but I didn't want to interfere those numbers with this report. But right now, as it sits through the month of June, we are 4.39% behind 2023 for visitors coming to the area. Taxable receipts or SIC codes, now this is money being spent in the community while they're here along with us residents as well, but money floating in the community nonetheless. And looking at January through June on lodging, eating, and drinking, again, your triple B or your promotional fund, we totaled out at $50,314,900 versus $104,554,730, or roughly to date, we are roughly 1.8% behind last year. Again, we have a few good months ahead of us. Some of that could be weather related. Some of that could be inflation. Some of that could be the price of gas. So you can see how the visitors through the month of June were down just a little bit, but the taxable spending or the money floating into the community or circulating is still maintaining a positive base. So we're happy with that. Was that answering your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. So, $142,000 worth of occupancy fees. Is that what I was reading?
That's currently where we're sitting. Yes, yep. Being halfway through the year. Yep. Totaling out or balancing out at par would be $312,673. So we're again 4.39% behind the par or below par. I guess I hate saying below, but behind par, I guess. So. Again, just some related photos of some of the events that we help promote and host throughout the community. Storybook Land events, Thunder Road, Wiley Park, Storybook Land, Aqua Addicts hosted the Midwest Water Ski Regional Water Ski Tournament in July. That was a huge success. And, some events and promotions require a little bit extra hand-holding. Some of it is just some visitor bags and some name tags and a strong welcome on behalf of the mayor, and just we're off and running. And again, it's just, we try to host all the events the exact same way. We try to show them the respect, whether they're big or small, we take care of them all, I guess. Aberdeen area events, some of the most notables for events hosted: Aberdeen Swim Club events, State BMX, South Dakota High School Activities, Girls State Softball, State B Basketball. South Dakota Karting Club Championship is getting real strong. Midwest Water Ski Regionals, which I just mentioned. South Dakota Clay Target Championship, Hub City Dakota Bank Tournament, and Geff Dog Indoor Tournament. One held at the Dome, and I believe the Dakota Bank Tournament is going to be moving to the Dome next year as well in April. South Dakota Volleyball Coaches Clinic or Coaches Association, softball tournaments, indoor dome baseball events. We had the dome days, and we have a new one coming, Trouble in the Bubble. I don't know where that name come from, but it's kind of catchy. So they will be here next year. YMCA tournament, Special Olympics, Midwest Wrestling Championships, NSU homecoming, and multiple class reunions and family reunions as well. But I did note at the bottom, we got to take the good with the bad. Aberdeen was slated to host the USATF Track and Field Championships, and that was going to be July 4th through the 7th, and that was going to bring 1,000+ athletes to Aberdeen, July 4th through 7th, that we unfortunately lost just due to the lack of hotel accommodations in Aberdeen. So we do chalk up a lot of wins, but every once in a while we get a black eye that we have to recover from. And I hate losing events to other communities. We lost that one to Fargo, so most notably. But it's one of those that I just wanted to note. Anytime we can, I've said in multiple meetings, we can't host events unless we have hotel rooms, and we don't need hotel rooms unless we host events. So when we do lose an event for the lack of hotel accommodations, it's worth noting that we would love to have more hotel accommodations here if we could. Event funding through the Hotel Alliance, most notable associations: Aqua Addicts, Aberdeen Q Club, Aberdeen Hockey, Aberdeen Wrestling, Aberdeen Community Theater, NPRA Bull Riding, Pheasants Forever, Aberdeen Hardball, Aberdeen Christian, USATF Track. We did fund them, that they did return. Aberdeen Gun Club, Hub City Radio, Dakota Slideways, Power Sound, and Moccasin Creek Pro-Am. Those are all through the month of June. So we still have the second half of the year to go. I'd see this list double or potentially triple in size. Hotel Alliance funding paid out through the month of June of $47,150. And again, those would be entities that would potentially be coming to request funding from the promotional fund. They do come to the Aberdeen Hotel Alliance and request assistance for when they're hosting events or sporting events or conventions in Aberdeen. We try to help them out as well. What do visitors think about Aberdeen? Look forward to seeing the Storybook Land characters. My children's faces light up in excitement out of Fargo. Look forward to making memories with my kids, Sioux Falls. Storybook Land has been a family tradition since I was young. It's now a tradition for my children, and we all look forward to spending a day walking the Yellow Brick Road and riding the rides out of Minnesota. Aberdeen is not only an amazing place to grow up, it's a wonderful place to come home to. There is no place on earth better to be a kid. There's always something to do, especially in the summer. Storybook Land Theater, Arts in the Park, Dakota Prairie Museum, Aquatic Center, or just playing in the maze at Storybook Land. There's so much music, arts, culture. It's a place to feel safe and to let your kids run around and play, and that's out of Virginia. This is our first big family vacation. Excited to bring the kids to see their favorite stories and experience adventure out of Minnesota. So, again, those are what our visitors think. They're kind of our first line of defense when it comes to how our marketing is working when we're working travel shows and sporting events, when we're greeting those guests at those sporting events and travel shows and answering questions they have, and basically just flat out enticing them to spend their vacation in Aberdeen. So that's all I have. Unless anybody has any questions, I do have some more information from South Dakota Tourism we could really go crazy on if you want, but it really kind of reiterates what we just mentioned about how visitor traffic is down just slightly, but yet visitor spending is up. So we're good to see that as well. So,
Well, thanks for coming, Casey, and presenting this information. It's always good to hear this stuff is working, and I know that you guys do have a valuable role in a lot of these events that happen in town. Obviously we've talked in the past about the lack of hotel rooms to accommodate the bigger events. Can you kind of walk us through what happens when there's an event like the USATF track? It seems like they're going to be here. There's been some at least discussion and commitments.
Yeah.
And then it dissolves at some stage in the game due to that lack of housing. How does that happen?
It's USATF we combined with Northern State University, Lynn Dingman with the track at Northern, and she was able to entice them to look at Aberdeen to host the USATF track and field event in 2024. We did host that back in 2013, I believe, if I remember right, if my year is right. And it was a huge event. It brought 1,000+ athletes to Aberdeen, but back then we had more hotels. We had more accommodations, and even with the new hotels that are built, we are looking at. Would love to see more rooms in Aberdeen for availability, but where the problem kind of developed was when you're bidding these events and hosting these events, we are still at the mercy of families, moms and dads making that reservation. And especially with USATF, a lot of those kids didn't qualify until 2 weeks prior to that event. So then you have hotel rooms potentially holding those rooms for 6, 8, 9 months, waiting 2 weeks prior to that event to be hosted. And everybody gets nervous. And when the moms and dads don't make those reservations right away, hotels are going to look for business. They're going to look for guaranteed business. And normally the room drop threshold is 30 days. So we're kind of at that catch-22. We're at the mercy of them holding rooms past their 30-day drop. But industry standard is hotel rooms around the community and the nation typically hold their hotel rooms for 30 days. And we did explore the options. I immediately got on the phone with Amber and with the city and her contact with PC to see if we could house people up in the dorms. But unfortunately, the insurance didn't allow that to happen. I did research Northern State University about utilizing their dorm space as well, but staffing staffing schedules didn't allow that to happen as well. But even if we would have had Northern on board with the dorm rooms available to help host this event, 1,000+ athletes, we would have run out of hotel rooms. We still would have had problems with accommodations hosting that event.
So that doesn't sound like it's something that is par for the course in terms of the process, it seems like more of the time we would know ahead of time
Yes.
that we didn't have the rooms to accommodate,
Yep.
and it wouldn't have gotten as far along as
Yep.
this one did.
This one, we thought we had a chance to host it. You know, you're looking at 880 hotel rooms in Aberdeen, give or take, on a weekend. And, you know, if some of those kids will travel with multiple families or bunk up or this, that, or whatever, we could have handled it. But the kicker that that really hurt us on that was the 2 weeks, qualifying 2 weeks prior to the event. That just made it almost impossible for those families. Nobody's going to stick their neck out for a hotel room if they don't know little Johnny or little Susie's going to make it to that event, let alone book your trip in general. So that kind of put a wrench in our plans. You know, it's one of those things that unfortunately there's just events that develop into positive hostings. I mean, they have a positive experience. You look at AAU wrestling. It has generated to the size it is that it's flat out too big. We will probably never host that again. With boys wrestling and now the addition of girls wrestling, they ran in 2023. I think they ran 2,500 athletes through the Barnett Center alone, and we don't have nearly enough hotel rooms to cover that. You know, we utilized hotel rooms in outlying communities as other communities do. We reused all of our regional partners to help host those hotel rooms. But it's those big events that you try to gain and try to entice them to come to Aberdeen, but sometimes those events are just a little bit too big, bigger than you expected, I guess is a way to put that. I don't ever want to bring a black eye to Aberdeen, you know, by bringing two big events to town where we flat out can't host
Right.
it, but yet I don't want to bring a black eye to Aberdeen for not trying either. So
Well, we definitely appreciate your efforts in the matter and the marketing that you do on our behalf. Anyone from the council? David, what have you got?
yes, sir.
Casey, you talked about Dome a little bit and some
Yeah.
events that we've had there, and since we're not quite up on a year yet, but just the positive impact that you've seen talking to events and working with Parks and Rec and just the city with
Yeah, I
having
think-
the Dome now.
I think with the city owning the Dome is just going to make the process that much easier. I really do. Being able to pick up the phone and reach out to Travis, he's always positive. You know, he's always willing to try, and to be able to pick up the phone and reach out to him. You know, hosting whether it's baseball tournaments, indoor soccer. I know Hub City Soccer is going to take their Dakota Bank soccer tournament that's typically held in June, which dominates a weekend or locks a weekend away that another event can't come, and they're going to move to April. And from what we're hearing, it's going to be it's going to be a very positive experience because a lot of tournament play, especially in April, people have to travel to distances of Omaha or better to get tournament play indoors. And now we'll be able to provide that in Aberdeen. So that'll open up those avenues. I know Mayor Schoeneman and myself have been working with Brandon out of where's Brandon from? North Dakota?
Bismarck, yeah.
Bismarck, thank you. And bringing some baseball tournaments to town. Last year being the Dome Days. This year, again, we're going to be hosting the Dome Days, and then he's coming up with a new one called the Trouble in the Bubble baseball tournament. But those are just a few things. You know, when we can show that events can be held, but yet, more importantly, events can be scheduled strategically to spread that out. You know, with Hub City Soccer moving there in April, now opens up that weekend in June, that would be easily taken up by a softball tournament and or a hardball baseball tournament, let alone something else that's out on the radar that we might potentially bring in. So yeah, I see it as an exciting process, and I think it'll just even get better as it goes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Fulberg.
How many hotel rooms does Brookings have compared to us?
Off the top of my head, I don't have the number in front of me. We are roughly ahead of them, but it makes me nervous. Yeah.
Yeah, they're closer to Sioux Falls and Watertown too. Oh,
That's the other positive that Brookings and Mitchell have is they can play off Sioux Falls or Watertown. So
yeah, I was just curious if we were able to get concerts. I mean, Brown County Fair kind of concerts in a venue, whether that be the Dome or somewhere else in town, the Civic Arena. Like, would
I
we be
love
able
that.
to handle them?
Yep, I love that idea, and I think the philosophy we have to go after looking at that is what was just recently held in Huron.
Yeah.
I don't remember the artist. I apologize. But they held a concert that would hold like 9,000 people. There isn't nearly 9,000 hotel rooms in Huron, so you just have to basically host it, and people will come. And the ones that can stay, good for them. The ones that can stay in the outlying community, good for them. But there's some people that just go to those concerts and are day trippers, and they're going to drive home regardless. So I say if we could ever host a concert or a bigger event, by all means, let's host it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. How do we do that?
I say just build it and they will come.
I feel
Build
like
it or
Got it.
rehab it and they will come.
I do feel like, if I remember correctly, one of the pitches of Dakota Bank Stadium was that there could be musical
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
entertainment there. So I feel like you could probably rib somebody
I've been
on that
ribbon.
deal. Okay.
Yeah, if we could host something on Dakota Bank Stadium on the field or a concert, I mean, you're talking ticket sales, you're talking alumni that would go bonkers. You would have a great time. If it's Dakota Bank Stadium, if it's Barnett Center, if it's the Civic Arena, if it's the indoor dome, I mean, we have events or facilities at our disposal now. We just need somebody. I'm a terrible singer, so it won't be me getting up on stage.
All right. Anything else from the council?
Mm.
Oh, go ahead. Councilman Ward.
Just curious, Casey. First off, thank you for the presentation, all the
you're welcome.
information beforehand. Just curious, I know you mentioned occupancy fee is, I think, 4% down on hotels.
Yep.
What's it look like the short-term rental? Do we collect any type of occupancy fee on the Airbnbs or Verbones?
Ron, you might be able to help with that a little bit.
No, if
It's one of those things we don't like to talk about.
Okay.
It's and I look at and I have some information here from state tourism, and typically short-term rentals, we'll call them Airbnbs, and long-term rentals, being hotels, throughout the state typically run full anywhere from 65 to 70% of the time. So if you look at the number of Airbnbs in and around the Aberdeen community, which there aren't nearly as many as there are when you talk about the Black Hills and Rapid City area, but nonetheless, we have some, and you're looking at those short-term rentals that are potentially full 65 to 70% of the time throughout the year on average. That alone constitutes the build for one or possibly two hotels. If those and nothing against Airbnbs, I don't have one myself, but also Airbnbs take up inventory when you're looking for real estate for sale and or rentals. People aren't renting them out because they're going to rent them out via Airbnb, or people are not selling them because they're holding on to them for Airbnb. So then it affects our housing market, it affects our rental market, and it affects our hotel market. And it's kind of like the relative you just don't quite understand.
So is it a possibility to collect an occupancy fee for?
I think they would have to
private
self-impose on themselves,
Oh, good luck.
and that's really the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is arguably a bigger question, but you would have to certainly revise any ordinances we have regarding the occupation tax,
Mm-hmm.
because it does not include, excludes bed and breakfasts and then hotel properties of less than 25 rooms.
Yes.
So we need to revise that, and I'm not sure how. And then secondly, how you would enforce that. I'm not
Well,
sure.
it's collected through the sales tax portal, right? Is that how
The hotels self-impose this upon themselves. They collect that $2 fee, and then it's sent to the city. The city processes it and sends it back to the hotel.
It doesn't go through the state sales tax payment?
No.
It's directly sent.
Yep. And there, Jordan, you can tell me. I mean, there's highs and lows when it comes to the occupancy tax. I mean, sometimes you wait, and sometimes it's timely, sometimes it's not. But not only having 10 hotels to work that occupancy tax, now if you had 10 hotels plus however many Airbnbs, that would be an accounting nightmare. But
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming here
Thank you.
tonight. It was very informative. I appreciate your
any
efforts.
questions, by all means, please reach out to us or emails. we're available. So thank you.
Next on the docket is our possible approval of a resolution 240903, which is one that we'd spent a little bit of time talking about and volleying some emails about. This is a resolution which regards initiated Measure 28, and of course we had our own Julie Johnson here to speak in positive support of that. Robin, would you talk to us a little bit about the resolution itself?
So I did send out some documents to you by email a couple times just to explain kind of what the resolution might entail, and really it's informational, and it has in there, the information I sent to you had information, kind of the Attorney General's thoughts. It had some information in there about the Legislative Research Council, and then, of course, Municipal League's position on it as well. And, you know, we did meet with a few of the cities here via the mayor's group and city managers groups a couple weeks ago. And last week we did meet in Brookings, and there was a presentation from various groups, including Mr. Weiland being the proponent of this. And you know, the intent behind the resolution really is to have an awareness of what the measure will do or could potentially do and how the effects are. So with that said, I'm going to have Ron go through a little discussion on what you can do to take a position on this. So, Ron?
So we have been very clear, thank you, Robin. We've been very clear in narrowing what it is this resolution is addressing. This resolution is simply addressing how this measure could impact municipalities and the city of Aberdeen in particular. So the early legal question is whether something like this is something the council can pass, and it certainly can. You have the ability to educate the public and let them know the potential impact of an initiated measure, a ballot question on the city of Aberdeen. And to dig a little deeper into the actual language that the measure uses, it talks about the state not taxing the sale of anything sold for human consumption, and then it specifically says that municipalities, however, may continue to impose such taxes. And the Attorney General and the Legislative Research Council have identified a number of what they consider to be clarifications that the language will need by either a court or by the legislature. And one of the concerns that has consistently been raised is the ability of a municipality to impose a tax on something that the state is not able to collect that tax on. Again, the courts have to look at this and decide whether or not the language in the measure will accomplish that and will at the same time protect the municipalities, because if I understand the measure itself, it's designed to provide tax relief for what we would consider necessities, essential items, essential things. And I don't think there's any question that what the drafters of this also meant to include municipalities in providing essential things, and didn't want to be able to take away from municipalities the ability to continue to provide those. And now there's this question of whether, in fact, it will take away that ability. And so in the resolution, we've identified what it is we anticipate the impact could be on the city of Aberdeen as itself by the passage of this. I understand that from what Ms. Johnson said, it's possible that this could be much larger consequence than I think that the drafters intended. But utilizing the narrower analysis, I think that the fiscal note did of the Legislative Research Council, we're looking at potentially a $2.1 million impact on revenues in the first 12 months that this is effective. And there is a real question about the the ability of the city of Aberdeen to continue to receive that tax and how that would impact our city services and our municipal budget. So as you read the resolution, you'll see that we're acknowledging that there's this legislative or judicial determination that's going to have to be made because the language itself isn't very clear. And I think the council, as stewards of our budget and as representatives of the city of Aberdeen, need to be mindful that the potential impact for IM28, as laudatory as its purposes might be, the unintended impact might be that you'll see a $2.1 million hole in your budget for the next 12 months that the measure is in effect. So that's all the resolution is showing, is that there's that potential question that needs to be answered, and if it's answered in a way that isn't favorable to municipalities, this is what the impact would be on the city of Aberdeen.
And when you say if it isn't favorable to cities, you're referring to the city's ability to collect tax on those human consumption tailored goods.
Yeah, the Legislative Research Council did an analysis of the language that before it was actually put in its final form for purposes of the petition. The Legislative Research Council identified some questions and some areas that it felt were of concern, and it proposed some better language that the proponents of this measure could use. The proponents decided to not use that language and go forward essentially with what they had originally packaged, and that's the petition, and that's what's on the state ballot question for the voters. And so, again, there are legal minds out there that say there's a lot of questions here, and it's very possible, I'm not saying likely, but it's very possible that it could be judicially or legislatively determined in a way that hurts municipal budgets.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate your clarification on that. Would anyone care to make a motion on the resolution itself?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Northrup and a second from Councilman Ward. Any discussion from the council? Any clarification points to be made or topics to be brought up? David, what have you got?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this resolution is good, and I appreciate that we have the opportunity to make our voice heard and educate the voters. And one thing that I've thought about a lot on not just this but other measures over the years, that we're not voting, and the voters aren't voting on a concept or intent. We're voting on what the language actually says, and it's not based on what I say it says. It's based on what the petition says it says, because that's the actual law that would go into effect, and that's what guides what we have to do as a city or the state has to do in whatever policy direction. So I think it's really important on this particular matter to know what it actually says. And like Ron said, there's more questions than answers, and it's really vague. And you could be for the concept or the theory of taking the sales tax off food and still vote against this, and still be true to that intent, because the details matter and the words on the page matter, and it's really important for people to know what those words actually say and do. And if they're not sure, no is a really good answer on a lot of ballot issues. Going back to my legislative days, I was part of a 10% budget cut, and it wasn't very fun. And I don't really want to be sitting with you guys doing another 10% budget cut. The city doesn't have that kind of excess spending like maybe some states do, or even South Dakota was challenging. We got through it, but it was not fun. And I don't think the citizens of Aberdeen will want us to cut their budget 10%, because they're going to give up a lot if it turns out as bad as some of the experts say it is. And that's the problem, is we don't know the actual impact today, because there are a lot of varying opinions, but a lot of them are going in the wrong direction, and it doesn't sound good. But thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that point of view for sure. Anyone else from the council have any comments to make? All right. Any final thoughts, Ron? Sounds good. We've got our motion. We've got our second. Jordan, would you give us a roll call on the resolution?
Councilmember Foberg,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Norvstrup,
Hi.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you for that. Next, we've got our first reading of ordinance 240902, which supplements budget for appropriated funds for unanticipated projects, activities, and expenditures. Jordan, what can you tell us about this ordinance?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second of operating transfers and budget supplements for activities that our city does throughout the year. This takes care of primarily insurance activity. Our general liability insurance premiums were higher than anticipated and budgeted for. Work comp, and auto liability. So it's kind of a triple whammy that hit us with the insurance, and that describes the majority of the activity that you'll see within my explanation of the ordinance. You'll also see things such as supplements for professional services like audits, the Condrey study, and outside legal service. Those are things that are no surprise to you. We've discussed them quite a bit, but they are costly services that we do on a recurring basis. So I will note that we do have an accurate or a closer to real budget for insurance next year. So I don't anticipate coming back in 2025 with increases across the board like this. This is unusual. We have a 3-year claim window, and things should improve as long as our work comp claims stay down. You'll see some supplements for activities funded by grants. Some CARES funding is used to purchase vehicles at the police department. I believe they were Excursions or Tahoes, and this provides the funds to outfit them so that they can put them into use. Some funding for website upgrades. That's an ongoing project that should really improve the usability of our website. You see various transfers out. The most notable is a $1.7 million transfer to the Parks and Rec Fund for the purchase of the dome. We've talked a lot about that tonight. We've also talked about that declining fund balance in this special sales tax and the increasing fund balances in the general fund. That should be no surprise to you that expense is there, or that we need the budgetary authority for that item. So that's a transfer out there. Otherwise, just general transfers that occur within the normal course of business. Staff recommends approval of the ordinance as it is proposed.
I'll move to approve. Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson, second from Councilman Reinbold. And so you said that our 2025 budget does essentially accommodate for these higher numbers as it relates to these insurance. So we should be in good shape, and a lot of the others are just single-time expenses for reimbursement.
That's correct.
Any questions for Jordan on this ordinance? All right, go ahead and give us a roll call vote then, please, Jordan.
Councilmember Norvstrup,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Foberg,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye. Next, the motion does carry. Next, we've got the possible reading of ordinance 240903, which supplements 2024 budget for Parks, Rec, and Forestry activities. Jordan?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a similar supplementing ordinance. It moves activity that occurred within our Parks and Rec gift fund and puts it into the department where it actually was expensed. So just simply moving cash to where we incurred the expense. It wasn't necessarily budgeted for, but the cool thing about the gift fund is it allows us to do things that we didn't budget for. So we do these quarterly. This is the third quarterly transfer, and we'll have another one in the winter.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion Johnson, second Liebelt. Any questions on this ordinance which facilitates the budget transfer? All right, Jordan, would you give us the roll call vote on that then, please?
Councilmember Foberg,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Norvstrup,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye. Motion carries. Next, we've got the review and approval of our claims and payroll. Payroll is September 8th through the 21st. And our bills, of course, this week's list as adjoined to this packet. I would take a motion to approve our bills.
Move to pay the bills.
Second.
Motion Liebelt, second Reinbold. Anyone have anything? Jordan?
Councilmember Norvstrup,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Foberg,
I accept Dakota Bank.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye. Motion carries. Now we will enjoy our city manager's report. Robin, what have we got this week?
It's going to be an exciting talk here. We did have the city golf tournament last week, and there was some very good golf, very great weather, and good fellowship that we had as city employees. It was quite obvious that your administrative staff needs to spend more time on the golf course, because I think we were real close to the tail end of that group. But we had fun nonetheless, so it was a lot of fun, and we thank Parks and Rec for putting that on every year for us, spring and fall. Abby Awards are coming up this Thursday, and I think there's going to be at least 6 city-related folks attending that, and I encourage you to go if you have the opportunity. I believe there will be one city department that will be up for as a nominee. Stu, why don't you give us an update on Klein Street briefly here?
Sure. So, graveling pretty much get finished up here in the next couple weeks on the south portion of the couple weeks by the end of the week on the south portion of the project, and curb and gutter will start next week, bright and early Monday, I hope. And they're removing surfacing today on the north piece from 8th to 9th, and utilities we expect will start tomorrow on that, so they'll start putting storm sewer in, and then follow that with sanitary sewer and water. And the contractor thinks that'll take about till the end of next week. So we are on track to be finished. The completion date is October 20th, which is kind of a strange completion date. It's Sunday. But we're on track to get finished by that completion date.
So, Stu, I got a question. So, we recently had to repave Klein closer to the downtown core, I think in the 3rd Avenue range, as a result of settling that occurred after that storm sewer was redone. Is that a risk with this as well, or is there something else that can be done to ensure that settling doesn't ruin the concrete?
With the size of this pipe, I don't think you would find a contractor anywhere that would guarantee that there would be no settlement. Another project comes to mind that we had the same issue with was the overpass. The original reason that asphalt was put in between the bridge sections there was because they anticipated somewhere around 6 inches of settlement on that during the first, say, 3 or 4 years that was open. So we know it's going to happen. You balance that with the traffic volumes on the roads, and you make a determination on what kind of pavement you can use. And so, the piece that's south of the tracks is all concrete, basically, and that's just because of the usage it gets. We also felt maybe we would get a little bit better result from having a concrete surface, which is a little bit more rigid. Pavement would be resistant to the settlement. We elected to go, because of lower traffic volumes, north of the tracks. That's all asphalt up there. And we expect that, with the fact that that is a less rigid pavement, that we will see settlement occur there too. The positive for using the asphalt is that it's a little bit less expensive to repair then too. So
there will be no concrete underneath of this asphalt on?
That's correct.
And that was the way that it was when it was torn out?
There was actually concrete on that street. at least parts of it had concrete under them, and we didn't anticipate that was there. It ended up costing us a little bit of extra money on this last stretch that we just are working on right now, because I think the stretch before that up to 3rd Avenue was just straight asphalt, and so we were surprised to find the concrete under the stuff north of that.
Some of the issues with the old storm sewer was interlaced clay, and so the fact that there might be a need to bridge that to keep the pressures from pushing down too much on the storm sewer actually was probably a benefit to us over the long run to have some concrete in some of those areas. But you've got straight concrete pipe now, so that the same issues do not exist with your needs. So
Thank you for that clarification. Anything else with the city manager's report, Rob?
yes, sir. I have a 5-year certificate of appreciation that we presented to Alex Garvin last week, and we congratulate Alex for that. And I wanted Chief Weig to get up and give us just a little presentation on. He attended the National Guard ceremony regarding a current employee, and I thought maybe he'd want to. It's a good news story. So.
It is a good news story. Thank you. I had the honor of attending Aberdeen Fire and Rescue's Maxwell Stoltenberg's military retirement on September 7th of 2024 out in Rapid City. Max had put in 21 years of service with the military, and we thank him for that. What I didn't really know is that at the time was all the awards that he was going to be getting. I'll list some of them for you. They're pretty impressive. From the Secretary of Army and the Chief of Staff of the Army, Max received the Army Individual Award of Excellence in Safety of a non-commissioned officer. He received the Meritorious Service Award. He received a Presidential Certificate of Appreciation from President Joe Biden. He received a Governor's Executive Proclamation of September 9th, 2024 as Maxwell Stoltenberg Day from Governor Kristi Noem. He also received a Certificate of Achievement from the United States Army Europe and Africa Command. So really impressive. He also received 5 challenge coins for his excellence. One from Governor Kristi Noem, one from Brigadier General Byram, U.S. Army Combat Readiness Center, Brigadier General Daly, Assistant Adjutant General of South Dakota National Guard, State Command Sergeant Major, and the 96th Med Command Company. It was an honor to be there, and he deserved all the recognition that he got for his 21 years of service.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That was really exciting, and I was glad to see the post that you guys had put about recognizing him for those things.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here, Chief.
One more. As long as I got the mic, I might as well keep it. Okay, I asked Mark to be here. He attended a Parks and Rec Association convention last week, and regarding one of his former employees. So,
yeah, we had our South Dakota Park Rec Association meeting in Sioux Falls last week, and during that time, Gene Morshing, who worked for us for 37 years, he actually started his career in Redfield as the recreation director there. Came to Aberdeen in 1992 and finished his career here as our recreation superintendent. But Gene's duties were well beyond the work that he did here in Aberdeen. He was a constant professional in the Parks and Rec field, both nationally and statewide. Held numerous offices many times, president, vice president, anything they could find, Gene was in there. And he also was our rep at the national level as well for a number of years. And so based on all that, we honored Gene and his family last Tuesday night with the Hall of Fame award. He went into the Hall of Fame for Parks and Recreation, or South Dakota Parks and Recreation that night. And it was a nice evening. It was good to see Gene. And just so you know, I think recreation superintendents from communities all across the state that have retired showed up that night to honor Gene. So that tells you his connection to the professionalism that was out there from recreation superintendents from Yankton and Mitchell and Rapid City, Sioux Falls, Watertown, Pierre, all made the trip there that night to honor Gene. So he's mentored a lot of those professionals and across the state, as well as young men and women here in our own community. So we were grateful to honor him that night. He is the second individual to receive the Hall of Fame. Doug Johnson received it in 2019 for his efforts as well and work in the Parks and Recreational field. So both of those are good friends of mine, and we're grateful for their award. And we will honor Gene at our board meeting here in October as well. We'll bring him forth for that as well. So we're grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Mark. It's always good to hear. And boy, Gene was already being missed. City level, quite an impact maker here in Aberdeen.
That's all I had.
Sounds good. Well, if no one else has anything from the council, congratulations once again to Max, Alex, and Gene for your various accomplishments. Appreciate the efforts given to the city. I would take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion Johnson, second Ward. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.